Yeah, it's pretty loud in the background there, but yeah, we can kind of hear you.
Hello, everyone.
Hello?
Hello. This is Craig.
Hey, Craig.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Hello. It's going well.
All right. Sorry, I got caught up at Home Depot. So I'm at Home Depot right now. All right. What's everyone working on today?
Well, I went ahead and I set up my sled and everything in my scaffold. I call it scaffold. But I'm having a problem with something to do with the firmware and Arduino, and I'm kind of working through that. I think I sent a message, I think to you or to Makers Made, and basically I'm trying to get into the download firmware. This sounds familiar. I'm a little lost.
All right.
Put it mildly.
All right. You saw the new Maker Made, right? You did send a support ticket, correct?
Yes, sir. I did, and I think I did kind of work through it. I here's what I did since then. I downloaded Arduino, and then I went ahead and I, installed the that 1.6.12.12.
Okay.
But I haven't been out to basically. It kind of like started giving me like the Arduino Dual with the this allowed me to select, but I haven't actually got outside to hook my computer back up to the unit to see if I can, whatever I have to do to get it to work from there. I haven't been out there yet.
So what was the last step? What was the actual last step you did?
Well, what I did was I originally downloaded Makersverse and I had difficulty basically unzipping it, which I did. Then I went ahead and I watched a video where basically the guy said to uninstall that first and do this Arduino firmware update, I guess. And that's what I kind of worked on so far, but that's where I've left it. So is anybody else familiar with this particular issue? I don't know. It seems kind of rather obscure. I don't hear, like I put it on the Facebook. I took a picture and I showed it, but I didn't get a lot of responses as far as anybody tell me what to do. One gentleman.
Yeah, send it to submit a support ticket and send that picture. Did you submit it to the support ticket?
I think I did. I think you responded. We were going to have a meeting yesterday, but I didn't make it. You sent me some kind of, hey, let's meet at like 12 o'clock kind of invitation, but I missed it.
Oh, okay. No worries. Yeah, go ahead. I'll after this meeting, I'll go ahead and look at what my schedule is, and then I'll schedule in. All right.
Yeah, I'm working towards trying to figure it out. It's kind of hard because then I went ahead and I downloaded like Easel and that other one, Ink Space or something. I mean, I'm kind of like confused as to how they all interact together. I know that I wish it was like more of like one place where they would explain all these things, but I'm really new to all this, so it's a big learning curve.
All right, yeah. Go ahead, yeah. Send me a message, and I'll go ahead and I'll schedule you in.
Okay, sounds good. I'll just that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Of course.
Yes.
Questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, so where I'm getting stuck is the measurement of the chains. I can't find the spot in the y-axis where the two gears line up at 12 o'clock. And I took the chains off and measured them. They seem to be the same length essentially. I feel like I'm missing something.
No, this is Casey here. Whenever it tells you to jog left and right, etc., right? You're trying to get one tooth to be completely vertical on the top of your chains when you're doing your calibration, correct?
Right.
It's the
you have to get one tooth from each gear, right?
Yeah. So the only way people have found to do that to date is they unplug one motor and jog the other one.
Okay.
Left, right, up or down until So move the machine around until one sprocket has it straight up and down. Okay.
Right.
Then unplug that motor and go over and then go over and move your sled some more until the opposite motor then has one straight up. Then plug it all back in, and then that's your mark right there. Mark your chain and mark your sprocket. That's what you need to do.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I've gotten it. I've probably calibrated the machine at least 10 times, and the closest I've gotten was 1.3 millimeter. But then after that, it's been worse and worse.
Yeah, and just so you know, in the system, in the software, marking that chain, measuring the chain, is really it's really used later on in case, let's say, your chain jumps a sprocket tooth or something like that. It does happen. It's rare. Mm-hmm. We've seen it on Facebook where somebody was doing something and the chain for some reason jumped one tooth. Right. Well, what you can do then is you can move those two sprockets back up to perfect north like they're supposed to be, and you can click reset chains.
Okay. It doesn't matter where the sled is or
no,
in response.
No. That's what that reset chain button is for. It's supposed to redo the calculation, so then it realizes that that chain on that one side has moved down. Most likely it'll move down one tooth. It'll redo all of the calculation in the background to fix that. Personally, I've never used it. If my chain jumps like that, which I've got it set to where it doesn't anymore. It did at the very beginning a couple of times. I found it easier just to run through my calibration really quick. And just a little trick on that, if you set up your calibration, all of those numbers you put into there, write them down on your work surface. Heck, I wrote them on my spoil board. Mm-hmm. What was my offset? What was my chain? What was my motor height? All that. I wrote it in permanent marker on my spoil board. That way, if I had to recalibrate, I can just look up there, plug those numbers right back in, hit enter, and just buzz through it. And, you can get to where you can go through the calibration in just a couple of minutes.
Yeah. I mean, I've done a similar thing. I just double check sometimes, make sure it's all the same, but it's pretty much just, I can do it pretty fast. And,
yep. Yeah. You get used to it.
Yeah. There's just some, I'm just not quite sure how accurate I should aim for. Is like 1.3 good, or is that?
Yeah. I mean, if you look in the system, the manual says that 6 millimeters, less than 6 millimeters, it even pops it up in the software. It says if you have 6 millimeters, your calibration is fair, right? If you get below, I don't know, I want to say if you get below 2 millimeters or something like that, it says your calibration you're extremely well calibrated. Mm-hmm. Getting below 1 millimeter, I'll tell you now, that's hit or miss. I've had it below 1 millimeter, ran a job, and then just for the heck of it, went back and recalibrated, and it came out at 2.2.
Right.
So, you just have to have that expectation that you're not going to have fractions of a millimeter of accuracy on a machine.
Right. Yes. Well, I mean, one time I often calibrate it with the edge, with the the first edge from the round circle to the edge, this lead, and I'd get like 2.7 or something like that, and then I would do the precision with the drilling, and then I would get something, then it would be worse, sort of like it would be like it would go up.
Yeah, to be honest, the function of how accurate you are in your calibration, the function of that is on your beam and your board dimensions and setup, right? But the reality is these things are made of wood. Right? I can come out one day and it's this. I can come out another day and it's a different temperature outside and my calibration is this, because everything has moved.
Right.
Wood expands and contracts. That's just the reality of it. So unless it's in an environmentally closed area, I mean, that's just something you're going to deal with. But I build very, very accurate spec parts, flat pack furniture, stuff like that. And 1 millimeter out on mine, that's okay. I can deal with that. Mm-hmm. So I'm good with that one, even sometimes 2 millimeters out on mine. I'm okay with that.
Okay, cool. Well. All right. I mean, it seems to be working pretty good. It's just, I was just wondering if I was missing something, not being able to get those gears. That's just a reference point for if it jumps track or something.
And pretty much, yeah. And I don't know if they're going to update that, how you use that, recalibrate chains or whatever, maybe later on. But for me personally, I don't use it. I just rather recalibrate and get that fuzzy feeling that everything's where it's supposed to be.
Okay.
Before throwing a $500 sheet of plywood on the thing.
Exactly. No, it's 1,000 now, I think.
Yeah, it's going up. Bro.
All right, appreciate that.
All righty. Anybody else have any questions?
Well, I kind of do. When you say calibrate, like what program are you using to calibrate? Because I hate to say it, I've got all these things in my head like Easel and Makerverse and Arduino. I'm trying to figure out what is what. Inkscape. Is there any like order that explains this or?
Makerverse is what you use to run and calibrate the machine. Yeah,
that's what I kind of get. And then I have an Apple and I'm trying to I brought that little package in there and I can't seem to figure out how to unzip. It won't let me open it. So I don't know if there's a override. I did get it to override and install, but then the problem was I was having problems with it. Basically, Arduino firmware wasn't set up, so it was having problems. So I uninstalled it, and now I'm trying to figure out how to put it back in there. And I don't know if anybody else has an Apple computer, but I'm having a problem with trying to figure out how to unzip it, the program. But then my other question is like, how does Easel and then the other programs like kind of play? Is there some like explanation how all this works together?
I don't know. I figured it out myself, to be honest with you. But I mean, whatever you design in Easel, there's a way in Easel to take and generate the G code. You export that NC file, just throw it on your desktop. And then whenever you open up Makerverse, you open up that file, you import it, and there's your drawing in Makerverse. And then you can go ahead and run your cut there.
So it goes from Easel generates the G code, and the G code gets brought into Makerverse.
Yep.
Then what's an SGB file? Is that before Easel? Like
an SVG file?
Yeah, sorry, SVG. Is
that's what you load into Easel?
Okay, and then so what is Inkscape then? Is that the step before? That's the step you've used before?
Inkscape and Easel are the same.
Okay.
The same type of tool, but Inkscape is just way too complicated. Trust me, you don't.
Okay, yeah.
You're having problems unzipping a file. You don't want to touch Inkscape.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like, yeah, exactly. I'm just trying. Yeah, like I said, I mean, they tell you to do these things, but I don't realize how they work together. So, okay. Yeah, thank you for that explanation. I'll keep working on it. I mean, it does help.
Yeah, I think if you look in the Facebook group, I have a video out there. I did do a video several months back on taking a spec drawing from. It was Google SketchUp. Saving the 2D flat file, exporting the 2D flat file, uploading the 2D DXF flat file, then to Easel, setting it up in Easel, then exporting the G code, then uploading to Makerverse.
Okay, so that helps. Yeah,
I think that's about as much of an explanation as anybody could give you.
I understand. Thank you. I appreciate that. It does kind of help because it's like trying to keep everything in my head, And also, I also have this new used computer. This little Apple to kind of help me do this, and I'm still learning that too because everything's like backwards compared to in some ways compared to a PC. Everything just different. So,
Dan.
Yeah, thank you again.
All righty. I see Dan and Michael and John and Joel. You guys got anything?
Hey, Casey. I got a couple quick questions. First of all, you just mentioned you made a video about how to transport those file types. Can you upload that to your YouTube channel also?
I might be able to. I might have deleted that.
Oh, so Facebook has it. Okay.
No, well, it's in the Facebook page. Now, I was told by Patrick and them, I was working with Chris Skiles and Patrick at the time. They were going to post it on their Maker Made website. I've never seen that. So it should be out there somewhere. But if you just look up Casey, I'm sure you'll find it in Facebook. Okay. I'll look back and see if I can find that file. And if I can, then I'll go ahead and upload it to YouTube.
That'd work. And also, I was looking for you to start selling some alignment jigs that you were going to 3D print. Have you had a chance to do that yet?
I am very close to getting there. I had to pump out those last two dust collection units last week, and I think the orders have pretty much dropped off. So I'll go ahead and get those dust collection systems or the centering jig. And is it okay? Do you think I should just sell them as the kit, the 1/8, the 1/4, and the 1/2 all in one little kit?
Yeah, well, I would buy it. Take my money.
Okay.
Sounds reasonable. Very good. I'd like one.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I got an open wallet. I'll take it. All right. Yeah. So I'll try to get those out there by the end of today. I'll get them up there. And
can they?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was gonna say, well, can they double as a coaster? I mean, maybe you could.
Actually, they can.
Okay, very good. I want to make sure to get multiple use of things. I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep. So yeah, I'll get those out there. I'll get those out to you today.
Awesome. And also, did you? I noticed you posted a question about the, I guess the offsets in the new software.
Yeah, the soft limits.
Yeah, soft limits. I mean,
nobody has ever fed that back to me, and I'm not kidding you. I don't know if you guys can see my. Let me know when you can see my video here.
Gotcha.
You got it?
Yep.
Been sitting here with that thing for 2 days, trying to figure out soft limits, right? I got the other one mounted on my board and everything, but I guess to my thinking is if I go in there and I put, so you need to know where soft limits start. So is it like in the middle of the 60? Let's say you set 60 millimeters. This
right.
was my exact question. If I say 60 is my soft limits, when I set home, is it 30 millimeters above and 30 millimeters below? Right?
Right. Positive, negative. Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody can answer me. So, because I would like to have a procedure on exactly how to set my soft limits, because I'm tired of crashing my unit. A lot of times I'll go to move. Well, and it's a dumbass mistake, right? It's my own fault. But what I'll do is I'll be trying to position my Z, setting a new work home or whatever. And I'll be in inches and I'll tell it to move up 10. And I click the button and it goes all the way up. And then you hear it go, and I'm like, oh crap. So I got to unplug it. I look over and I was moving 10 inches instead of 10 millimeters. So there's the oh crap mistake you make, but I would really like to set my limits.
Do you think it'd be easier at this point just to hard mount some emo switches in the corners so that the physical sled pushes it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, the new design, remember we was all talking about that a while back, the new gantry design, I got limit switches on the X, Y, and the Z.
Okay.
Yeah. On the board, I think that's the Z minus, Z plus, Z minus, Z plus on the board up there. I got to get with Chris Skiles and see if he's willing to give up that information. Again, I'm not a maker-made employee, so they don't have to say anything about the design, but
right.
I'll ask him if they'll hand that out to me and maybe I can fandangle something together.
Well, I'm still waiting on my 2021 box to arrive. Yesterday, it was loaded onto a FedEx truck and I watched a FedEx truck drive past my house. Then they said to reschedule for delivery. So luckily I was unarmed at the time.
Yeah. I hear you. Where's my crap? Yeah.
So yeah, I'm in the process of just laminating up some plywood into a long 12-foot header so I can minimize the dimensional shift of wood with environment. So I use plywood, laminated plywoods. And yeah, that's where I'm at still. So I'm just going to chill out and listen and see if I can pick anybody's brain.
Yeah, definitely. I see Mr. Matt joined there. So everybody on here, I asked, some of you guys know I got a YouTube channel with a lot of videos out there on the M2, etc. I wanted to do an operational video of actually using the new 2021. Is it really different than the old M2? My thoughts are it has design upgrades, but probably not performance upgrades. We'll see though, right? I want to be open-minded about that. And I actually, Matt here lives in the same town as I do. So I asked Matt to come over and we'll do a dual video. And, that way you got two opinions, Matt's opinion and my opinion, what we think about the new operations. But yeah, that way it's a little bit more open. And we was going to do it. I wanted to reach out to Matt. We was going to do it probably tomorrow or Saturday, but Matt, I was able to get finally signed up for my COVID shot. So,
okay,
that makes some people sick. So I'm like, I don't, I want to get my shot and wait a couple of days to see if it's going to affect me first.
Sure.
So it's Ixnay on this weekend for the video. It'll have to wait till next weekend.
Okay, no problem. Yep, no problem. Anytime.
Yeah, no expectations there. I got the Johnson and the same thing. I had COVID, got the shot a year later, and yeah, it wasn't fun.
Still made you sick.
Shot, so it still made me sick, and I had COVID before. So I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah,
I would expect to be out of collection for at least 36 hours.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was wondering. So I didn't want Matt to drive all the way over here and then not be able to do anything anyway. So
understood. Just let me know when you're better, and I'll be able to stop by. And coming over after work is not out of the question. I have flexible work schedules, so I can come up during the week too. But we just need to know when, and let me know.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. Let's see. I see Joe Dunn there. Joel, Michael, you guys got anything?
I just have had my M2 for 3 months, and I am just super busy owning a marketing business, and there seems to be a bunch of stuff getting in the way of finishing, getting it calibrated. So I finally got to a step where I'm ready to start calibrating and just have to make time to do it. But I think I'll join this every Thursday just to learn, while I work on marketing at the same time to pick up tips and tricks. But it's awesome.
Yeah, this little group right here that gets together every Thursday, we have some folks come in, come out. But I mean, the nice thing about this little group is a lot of times we talk about things that nobody can figure out in the Facebook page. That's a great place for information. But like we were talking about the soft limits a little bit ago. Right. There's some people on here that are really tuned in this call. And if we're not figuring out the soft limits, that means this is a maker-made question. Somebody needs, because even the experts can't figure out how it works. Now we need to dig deeper. So yeah, this is a good forum to just kind of listen and learn, right?
Yep.
That's awesome.
And if you have any questions on your calibration, again, reach out to the Facebook group. I guarantee you'll post a question, you'll get an answer in probably 5-10 minutes, and then you'll get more answers than you really wanted.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I actually posted something like maybe 3 weeks ago saying I'm willing to pay somebody to do a Zoom meeting with me to walk me through it, because I'm procrastinating on just not digging in because my brain is exploding with all these other things going on. And so I almost just need somebody to just force me to sit down and go through it. And then once I get it a couple of times, then I'll be off to the races and I'll actually start using it for all the things I want to use it for.
Yep. I understand. I definitely understand. Are you in not too personal, but what city do you live in?
I actually live in Warsaw, Missouri on Lake of the Ozarks.
Okay.
Actually moved out of Kansas City a year ago and kind of live more in the country now. So I've got a 20 by 30 shop that I'm slowly getting all set up for woodworking. I've already got everything completely mounted, got a computer mounted to the wall, and I just have got to focus and just spend at least 3 hours a week until I get through the calibration.
Yeah, on this side, if you was in the Houston area, I invite a lot of people to come over to my garage, and we sit down and we go through the fundamentals, how to build your frame, what it looks like, go through training on easel and then Makerverse. And I've done that with several people actually in the Houston area. But if you're up there, there's really nothing I can help you with.
Right. That's awesome.
I see Michael.
This Mike Hill. I changed mics. Is that better?
Yeah, that's fine. That's
all right.
Good.
Just a point that I want to bring out for all those who are trying to calibrate their machines. When you get online, you go to Maker Made, and a lot of the stuff is for the old version of Makerverse. So you got to be really sure that you're using 1.1.2 and the correct measurements and all that. So Casey keeps talking about it, but if you go in and look, sometimes you look at the old stuff. So make sure that you got the latest and greatest.
Yeah, and another component to that, right, is to make sure that when you do your measurements, I always advise everybody to do your measurements in millimeters, and there's a simple reason, because it's way more accurate, right? Doing it by quarters and sixteenths. For some reason, I don't know why, but the conversion method in Makerverse, it doesn't like standard units. It prefers metric. So whatever you do in Makerverse, do it in millimeters if you can. I've actually found disparities with when I load a design into Makerverse and I go from inches to millimeters, it doesn't convert right. I don't know why, but so now everything, even my designs, I do in millimeters and metric, and then I load it as metric, and everything seems to be working good after that.
Mm-hmm.
See, we got a couple of questions there. Which computer system is best to use? Makerverse? Yeah, well, I don't know. You're kind of barking up the wrong tree here, because Bill Gates hates me, so I tend to go to a Mac. Anything I touch on Windows, I blow the crap up. So I've used Mac for years. Yeah, that's my preference. Mac is easier. To be honest with you, with my loads, I don't have the problems with. I had an individual contact me just south of me here last week, and he was like 4 hours into a 6-hour run, and his machine went to sleep, and it was a Windows unit, brand new Windows unit. And whenever he opened it back up, he said that, he goes, "What do I do here?" He goes, "How do I get this to go again?" He couldn't hit the play button. He couldn't unpause it and hit play. Literally, he had to just disconnect and reconnect in Windows to get the unit to come back up and run. So that means he lost the entire second half of his board. I can tell you on a Mac, if my Mac goes to sleep, and let's say I run into the side, grab something to eat or something, and I come out and my Mac is asleep, I just hit my space bar. I reach up and I hit pause, and then I hit play, and it starts right where it was. But for some reason in Windows, it doesn't work like that. And just a word of advice, the person that is doing the designs, Chris Skiles with MakerMade, I think he's the designer. He designed everything in Mac. So, yeah, just a thought for you.
I would agree
more
with that.
Mac friendly than Windows friendly, because he's designing it in Mac, right? So, yeah. Let's see. Michael, you got Linux, Windows, and app. Your Mac is pretty old. I don't know. Mine's a 2014 version. It's still going strong. I mean, I can still run MakerMade on it, or Makerverse. So I'm sure one of these days they'll supersede the version I can actually upgrade to. But I don't know how old is old, right?
In computer world, 5 years is pretty old.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It looks like Craig had a question.
I just had a comment. I actually was, we have this new store that opened up that sells like refurbished computers, and they gave a pretty good deal on this little MacBook Air, whatever computer, and it looks like it has the newest, they updated the version, and it seems like it's older, like 2012, but it seems to be like the right tool for this. I don't know if anybody else, I'm still learning. Like I said, it's been a while since I've used a Mac, and it looks like it updated the operating system to like the Catalina version. Whatever. They did all that, but it seems like this would be a good tool for that. I don't know. I want to hear about maybe if there's some kind of limitation maybe down the road that I'm going to be aware of, but I prefer to use Mac or maybe Linux. I don't know Linux. I don't know much about that at all, but I'd like to learn if possible, but I'm trying to knock one thing down at a time. So anyway, that was just my comment on that, because like I said, I think the Apple's for this would be better.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I would agree with that. Don't learn Linux and a new CNC machine at the same time. But if you happen to have Linux, as I do, it runs great on this as well. Okay. But I would not try to get both in the same time. Just stick with your Mac if you've got one, or Windows PC if that's what you got. You gotta do with what you have, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, it's true. It's like, well, like I said, I haven't really worked in this kind of stuff with these kind of things in a long time. So I'm still trying to put together like all these different terms and what they do and what runs what. So I'm sort of like, it's all out there. It's been a long time. So I used to, do a lot of database work, and I had some of that, but this stuff is like, it's all different. It's all new to me, and I'm trying to basically make it, not try to overcomplicate it. And get more confused.
It's my understanding we've seen, I swear there was a post yesterday about Chris Skiles said, a new Makerverse beta is coming around the corner, and he was going to, talk to people about it, etc. I was in a Facebook post somewhere I seen yesterday. I mean, I thought we just had a beta version. Didn't we just do this? Went to 1.0.6. Maybe this is going to be 1.0.7 or 6.1. I don't know. So I'm kind of waiting to see what the new beta version is going to look like as well.
Do you take that beta version immediately and set it up, or do you wait? Is that just like for testing, or how do you, is that?
Well, I don't know. I feel pretty comfortable with Makerverse by now. I mean, I've been running it for quite a while. So if it's a beta version, I'd try plugging it in, because I know I can always just revert back to 1.0.6.
Thank you. How many targets?
Extra 3, the one that comes for the plate is 4.
Yep.
So I had a question about the, what's the advantage of using a 12-foot top bar?
So the 12-foot, so it's kind of a funny answer here. So MakerMade promotes that you can cut a full 4x8 sheet with the design, right? Mm-hmm. The reality is I think most people here have figured out that that's not necessarily 100% true. I have found on mine, the bottom 1 foot by 1 foot, 2 corners on the board, whenever I put a 4x8 sheet up on there, it just doesn't work, because the motor that's on the very end, if you look at it, it's literally pulling up on the sled instead of to the side. So what they have is they have the 12-foot top beam that you can upgrade to. And what that does extends that motor out. So even down at the bottom corners, you're still pulling sideways on the sled. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's what the 12-foot top beam does. In my mind, it allows you to cut a full 4x8. Your 10-foot top beam, you can cut the center. You can cut a 5x5 or 4x5 pretty accurately, not a 4x8. That's just my 2 cents.
Right. And so you have to have longer chains, I take it, right?
Yeah, MakerMade has a set of chains out there. They're the longer, the 15-foot chains, I think, is what they are on their website.
Right.
I did look into purchasing my own chains and just making my own. I'm already telling you that's not feasible. The cost comes out to be about $30 more than what MakerMade's selling theirs for. So it's just cheaper to buy theirs.
Right. Only problem is it's hard to find straight 2x4s these days.
Well, like your 2x4 up at the top, it doesn't matter if that is straight or not. Nothing's sliding on it. Your motors are just connected to the ends. Hell, if you could put 2 blocks on the wall that were a specific distance apart, hell, you'd be just as good, right?
Yeah, that's true.
The 2x4 doesn't matter. And if it's warped or bent a little bit, that's okay. Just as long as the motors are decent flat and they're not at funky angles.
Yeah,
they
as long as
right angle to the board.
Yeah, as long as they're the same distance from the top of the board, you're good, I guess.
That's right. The same distance from the top and the same distance from the middle, because the center of those chains should be the center of your board.
Right? And I've noticed on other videos, someone mentioned also the a lot of the old videos are kind of outdated, so there's not much on the 1 point whatever the current version is, but measuring the distance between the motors, I've seen you measure it from the 4 o'clock, the 8 o'clock position on one gear to the 4 o'clock position on the other gear. Is that still correct? Or?
Well, that's on the old software. The new software, you measure center of shaft to center of shaft.
Okay. And then the same from the top of the motors, or top of the motors to the top of the
center. It's from the center of the shaft to the top of your cut piece.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Now that's something, to Dan's point earlier on the Facebook page, I need to do a video on that because a lot of people measure straight down. That's not the right measurement. When you measure your distance, it should be measured on the same plane. And remember, your board, your cut board, and your top beam are at 15-degree angles.
Right.
So, for just as an example, I actually had some folks come over 3 weeks ago. They literally loaded their whole frame into a U-Haul and brought it to my house. No kidding. I went out. They were supposed to be here at like 10 o'clock in the morning. I went outside. There's a U-Haul in my driveway, and these guys were carrying this frame up my driveway. I was like, "What in the heck?" So whenever we got here, I was measuring that offset, and I said, "What's your offset?" So he goes over and he measured it straight down, and he goes 18. Well, okay. Whenever I showed him how to measure that at an angle, at the 15-degree angle, it takes a couple of different tools, but you get a really good measurement. When we measured it, they were less than 17. When you pivot that out on that angle, they were less than 17. So as a rule of thumb with the kinematic calculation, they were under 18 and their accuracy was all over the place.
Right.
So it needs to be measured at the 15-degree angle, both.
It'd be nice if you'd do a video of that measuring process.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too. We should probably get something like that up there on Facebook so everybody has that information.
And let's see. Oh, so the 18 inches is critical, or?
Yes, the 18 inches is very critical. Yes.
Does it have to be exactly 18?
No,
or can
no,
it be...
you can go more than 18. You don't go less.
Okay.
Matter of fact, when you change to your 12-foot top beam, again, the calculation for this whole Maslow design, I think it's like squishy math. It's not exact.
Right.
I can put in the same numbers and get different information every time. But with a 12-foot top beam, I kind of estimated, and don't take this as the Bible, but for every foot of length you add to your top beam, you want to raise the height of that top beam by about 2 inches. So if you go for a 12-foot top beam, right, you go to the 12 and the 10, you'd want to raise that from 18 inches plus 4 inches.
Okay.
So it'd be 22 inches for that. The motor height is what it's called in your calibration.
Right. Good
So,
stuff.
I mean, with the top beam, I didn't do the top beam. I just went ahead and, basically, I didn't do it separate from the rest of the, I don't call it scaffold, the rest of so in a way, I mean, it's already 15 degrees. If you put it on a wall, you got to be very careful you match up that 15 degrees. Or, so otherwise you could have problems. That's what you were saying earlier. Seems easier in a way just to have it on the same beam, that you have your wasteboard on. Does that make sense? That's why I said it.
I don't know. I don't understand the question, I guess.
Well, you know how they show it where you put up against a wall and you have that beam that goes across that mounts to a wall, the top beam, and then there's an angle there, I went ahead and I just basically I just mounted that top beam to the same, at a 15-degree angle on the same 2 pieces that I have my wasteboard on. You see, it's like I kind of made a mobile scaffold, so it's kind of like they're connected. There's no wall it's attached to. I think you had mentioned that earlier. You suggest that was a better way to do it. Maybe I'm wrong.
No. When we talked privately in Messenger, for you, your better setup is just to create the mobile frame and to mount the thing hard to the wall.
Okay.
That's okay. I mean, you can still use the 15-degree brackets that came with the kit, or you can just use a protractor and screw some wood to that top at 15 degrees. It's whatever you want to do.
Okay. Thank you.
I got a quick question.
Yep, go ahead.
So is this, I forgot his name, Jeremy something off of Facebook. I was messaging back and forth and he was telling me that the original PDF or whatever showed 10 inches somewhere and somehow the calculation was off because I was only 14 from the top of the beam to the top of the wasteboard. Is that an actual typo or did I just do something wrong?
Well, I to be honest with you, I don't know. It's 18 inches from the center of your motor shaft to the top of your cut surface. So As long as your waist board is the same size as your cut surface, you're not putting skirts around it. Yeah, it's the same thing. But center a shaft at 15-degree angle down should be 18 inches, a minimum 18 inches.
Oh yeah, I did read the minimum part. So yeah, I finally have that good to go. So I think I am ready to calibrate.
There you go. There you
Awesome.
go.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Anybody have anything else?
I just want to echo what you said about your computer going to sleep. If you have a Windows machine, you need to make sure that you set it to never sleep.
Yep. Yeah, this guy that I was talking to down there in Freeport, Texas, he learned that real quick.
Yeah, so did I.
After I think it's $110 he said he was paying per sheet of plywood. He goes, yeah, well, that sucks. I said, yeah, that's that lesson learned, right? Don't let your computer go to sleep.
Interestingly enough, on mine, I just left the wood in there and started it again. It went over the whole thing, was a perfect cut, and came out finished then.
Speaking of that, because of the time, you know, that eats up, is there a way to look at the log file for Makerverse and then look where the machine stopped and then go to the G code and just put in the G code from where it stopped, so that it just goes to the end of the, I mean, that's a little bit complicated, but.
Yeah, you can. I'm really lazy and I don't like to have to do that if I don't have to.
I mean, if it stops for some reason in the middle of the cut.
I mean, you can, what is that? I think it's called the CNC cookbook.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to that website, they have what they call a G code reader in it. And if you don't know GRBL, you know, if you don't know what all of those codes and what all that means, the cookbook is free. That software is free. You just load your NC file in it and it'll show you the GRBL. And what I loved about it was it had, next to all of the lines of code, it had the layman's term in it. So like this code XXX equals this, and it's moving it, right? Moving your sled to this coordinate. Next to that, it just wrote that. Move your sled to this coordinate, or lift the bit, or, you know, so it was kind of for me, you know, a long time ago, that was my intro to dummies to GRBL, because that helped me understand what the heck the machine was calculating and doing when I was sitting there watching it. Right. So in that retrospect, yeah, you can probably go in there. That same cookbook website has a GRBL editor. So if you know what your GRBL is, you can if your machine stops, you should be able to go in there, find that line of code, delete everything above it, and then reload that into Makerverse, and it'll start right where you left off. But you need a reader, and you'll have to modify your GRBL.
Right, but I mean,
I have done that once or twice, but like I said, it's a pain. I just want a restart button in Makerverse. That's how lazy I am.
Yeah, I hear you. But is that you have to go to get the log file from Makerverse to do that, right?
No, you know what your last pass in Makerverse was. You know what your machine was doing, right? So you should be able to look in your GRBL and find that where it was working, and say, okay, anything above there I can delete because it's already done that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, if you were inside in the house and you're trying to use Raspberry Pi to run it, you have no idea what the hell your machine just did. Shame on you.
Right.
I see a lot of people trying to move to this remote operation. I'm thinking, man, you don't want to do that with a CNC. That's just bad idea.
So you're saying just open the G code file and translate what your machine, because I don't know if I could do that, you know, like my machine.
Well, that's what that CNC cookbook does. Like I said, it's kind of I still use it, right? It's GRBL for dummies. It'll show you the line of code, and then it in layman's terms, it tells you what that line of code is. Okay. Lift the bit 20 millimeters, right? Lower the bit 5 millimeters, or move the sled left and right to the XY position here, whatever it is. You know, that's it tells you what each line of that code is. And you can physically look at your board and say, well, on this piece, it cut 2 of those paths. It was just getting ready to go down to the next cut. You know how it drills in 0.082 or whatever your cut depth is. It was getting ready to do that next path. So right there at that spot, everything above, I can just delete out of my G code, reload that into Makerverse and hit play.
Right. Okay, great. That's called CNC Cookbook.
Yeah, just go to that website. Like I said, I've just used those 2 items and both of them were free. And they have a whole bunch of stuff. It's that what they do is they sell their training on GRBL, CNC code. Mm-hmm. But they have that free software where you can load your GRBL and it kind of tells you what it says. So I love that. That was awesome. And it's free.
Casey, did I watch a video of you showing us how to, was that you that did the video that like showed on easel how to make like a sub cut of the same project? Do you know what I'm talking about? On easel, you had like, you copied the project, you pasted it, and then you took out a couple of pieces.
Yeah.
So that's probably a more common thing that I've done is when I get a project and I look, it's going to take 3 or 4 hours, and I'm like, oh, I don't have the time to do that. I found Casey's YouTube video where, you know, you look at the whole project and yeah, it might be complicated, might take a long time, but you can make an exact copy of that project and then delete the stuff that you don't want to cut in the first time. It gets it down, you know, real low, and then you can do the rest of it the next cut. As long as you keep the home, you know, the same, in theory, it should work. And, you know, if your system's calibrated and everything, and I've done that, you know, I screwed up on a piece or it, you know, it didn't work out. So then I just copied and pasted that to a new easel project and then exported that one and loaded that into Makerverse and ran that. So that's a way to do, you know, a project into multiple parts if you don't want to cut it all in one sitting. So.
Well,
yeah,
I have a few.
That's how I do my large projects. I'll take one design and I'll break it up into like 4 easel drawings. That way it's like 2 or 3 hour sessions of cutting. And I don't know, I'll cut one session. And if I still feel like sitting here for another 3 or 4 hours, I can go ahead and start the next one. But when it gets to the evening, when that's done, I can say, I'll load the other 2 tomorrow. I'll cut the rest of it tomorrow. I have that option, right? Mm-hmm. So that's how I handle large cuts.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good idea.
Yeah, and that might be a more common situation than your computer falling asleep, because I guarantee that's probably only a 1 or 2 time problem. Then you're not going to let that computer fall asleep anymore. So I break up my cuts that take a long time, or I'll start something at 8 p.m. and realize that maybe I don't want to be up till 1, you know, cutting on the CNC. So yeah.
Speaking of time and cuts, from an economic perspective, if you're trying to do something commercially, if it takes 8 hours or 10 hours to cut out one piece of furniture, it's kind of like kills the profit margin.
Right. But if you're doing something like that, though, what I've heard on the from the Maslow person is you just make a template. So you make a template of the piece that you want to cut, and then you can use a flush router bit, a flush trim bit, and then just cut that template out, and that's a lot faster. And that way your CNC can still be running, doing other things, and you've made a template for the first thing, and then you just cut out the pieces out of wood or out of, you know, some other medium that you're using, and you use that plywood as your template or whatever. I think that's a really good idea if you're going to mass produce something. But I'm not mass producing a lot of things, so I'm still waiting to use that. But
I'm not quite understanding the template.
Okay. Well, you can get the CNC to cut out pretty much exactly what you want. Mm-hmm. And then they sell a router bit that has a bearing on it that's exactly the same size as the cutting head.
Gotcha.
We call that a flush trim router.
Yeah, I got you.
And then you can put the router through the other material and then just follow the first one that you cut out.
And then you can cut the full 3/4 of an inch or whatever, in one pass.
If you have a pretty nice size router, or maybe do it in a couple of passes, but
right.
You can definitely do that. And then you're the CNC machine, so you know.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Yep. There you go.
Yeah, that they call this a pattern bit. And it just goes in my router table. And this right here, this bearing runs on the pattern, and this cuts the other piece.
Yep.
So it becomes the exact same shape, size, dimensions as the pattern that you created with your M2.
Mm-hmm.
There's also collars that can go on your router plate that don't involve bearing bits. And I kind of recommend that because if your bearing gets gummed up, it's going to seize and scorch a track in the side of your substrate. So you can also get the collar kit if you're familiar with what I'm talking about. It screws onto the router base plate. That's just something else I'll throw out there.
Yeah, good idea.
Also, if you stage your production, though, if you're making more than just one item that for sale, I find it most of my time is eaten up in sanding and finishing, right? So my intent is to have the machine working on the next piece of production as I'm doing my, laminating, sanding, finishing on the piece that just previously came off of the Maslow, assuming I can get that kind of consistent repeatability. So that's why I would also work into your workflow to consider, are you going to be batching out 3, 4, 5? Then I don't think the machine is really going to be the constraint going by the 3 constraints.
Yeah. You can optimize your workflow like that. That's a good idea. Yep.
Yeah. The other thing that you can do if you are, we have several people on here that they have home-based businesses and they're pumping out components, whether it's interior decorator stuff, small pieces of furniture, flat pack, whatever it is. The reality is the Maslow, the maker-made unit is pretty slow, right? I mean, most units, they'll hit 90 to 120 inches per minute on their travel speeds. This thing, if you're running over 30, you're pushing it with the M2. The only way to increase that speed is really to go up in your bit dimensions. So the reality with that in mind, if you're using a 1/8 inch bit, your depth per pass is very small. If you're using a 1/2 inch bit, your depth per pass is half of that 1/2 inch. So on a 3/4 inch, just do the math. You can do with a 1/2 inch bit, you can do a 1/4 inch cut depth on each pass. On a 3/4 inch piece of plywood, 3 passes and that piece is done, right? That's where you gain your speed, is by going up in your bit size.
So Casey, you're saying 30 inches per minute would be with a 1/4 inch bit?
Yeah, at 30 inches per minute, I use a 1/4 inch bit. I don't buy the best bits. So, I'm one of those cheapskates. I'll buy 4 or 5 of them from Amazon. And as I burn them up, chunk them and put in a new one. I don't do the whole Amana tool thing. Just way too expensive.
And from your experience with that scale, pretty linear. So a 1/2 inch would be 60 inches per minute.
No.
Okay. You're running
30 inch max. 30 inches is almost max for any bit you put in that thing.
Gotcha.
You can put in a 1/2 inch bit, and I have got up to 35. But I noticed the sled started jumping a bit. And it depends on the huge chunks of epoxy your plywood has in it, the layers. So
sometimes depth per pass. Yeah.
Your depth per pass is linear. Yeah. If you have a 1/2 inch bit, you can do a 1/4 inch depth per run. If you do a 1/4 inch bit, then you can only do a 1/8 inch depth per run, and so on. That's my general rule of thumb. Depth is half the radius, or it is the radius of my bit.
And also, do you have any experience or recommend any benefits to reducing the friction going to HDPE or some other material on the base?
Yeah, so here's my 2 cents on that one. We've had that discussion several times. This unit needs some friction. Okay, and that's my point from an engineering standpoint. You can put HMW or HDP underneath of it, whatever your preference is. But here's what I've found is I tear up my boards quite a bit. I accidentally leave a nail in the board, etc. I scrape the bottom of the board. I got to sand it a little bit here and there. So if I was to put a piece of UHMW on there, it's about $120 for a sheet of 3x3 UHMW. That stuff is really expensive. So, and then I start running over it in nails. I would just fall over. I'd faint every time I tore up that board. So I just Personally, I just use the board that I have. And what I do is I get up periodically while it's cutting, and I have a large, extra large sanding block, fine sandpaper, and I just run over all the cuts that I've done, just give it a quick sweep. That way I don't have any of that cut surface sticking up that's going to move my board around and give me angled cuts. But I mean, that's all I do. I just, yeah.
And I guess if it leaves some fine dust behind, that's kind of a reduces friction too, I guess.
That's right.
Like a baby.
Right. Yeah, even with my dust collection system, I still get dust under the board. You can't get away from it, right? You just made a huge cut, and that cut is a channel underneath your board. You do get a little bit of dust in that, and it does. But the other thing is, here, let me grab this. So this is something that I use the crap out of, and this does the job really well.
Okay. Gotcha. Oh yeah, paste wax.
Paste wax. Yep, I put that on the bottom of my boards every 2 or 3 months, and it just creates a glass-like surface finish.
That's
and
what exactly.
It doesn't come off on my cut pieces either. That's the great part about it. It doesn't smear wax over everything else, so it's good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's exactly what I was looking for. I have like Renaissance wax, probably be just as good.
Be just as good. Yeah, any kind of that woodworking, the paste wax is fine.
Yeah.
Got it.
It's 12 o'clock.
Sorry, that's my computer. I lose track of time.
I gotta go to my next meeting. But thanks, guys. It's been fun. We'll see you.
Me too.
Thank you. See you later, Matt.
Anybody else? Any questions before we call it good?
I just want to. Well, does anybody want to talk about lasers?
Hey, I have something.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, lasers.
I'm actually here to talk about laser.
There you go. You got Chris Skiles on. He be the man.
Hi, Chris.
So we have just a quick sneak peek of a machine running a laser. We're over here at Joel's house. So I'm going to turn my camera on, kind of showcase a project that has been done on the laser, walk through just kind of what some of the connection stuff looks like, and then just field any general questions that everybody has. That way we can kind of put together all of our information moving forward so that it addresses all of these common questions. How to turn my camera. There we go. Some of you may have seen this in the owners group. This was the time-lapse video that Joel did of all the rivers in the state of Arkansas. I think the video kind of makes it look a lot smaller than it is, but you know, if you look at it on the wasteboard, it's pretty sizable.
Yeah, it looks like a 4x4 there, Chris.
Yes. And then there's a sled for reference.
Yeah. Can that be used with the existing cutter, or you take like like the existing router? Does that have to come off, or how does that work?
So now this is not true for moving forward. Obviously, we've been going through multiple iterations of our laser mount. So you will not need to take your router clamp off. You'll just need to take the router out and drive it to the very top of the Z-axis. And then we'll have a 3D printed mount for the JTech laser to sit in, and it just attaches with 2 small wood screws just to keep it from falling out. Obviously, the laser itself doesn't introduce any vibration, but just the motion of the sled, the screws are there for the peace of mind that it's not going to fall off during.
I was going to ask what kind of power it has. Like, can it cut? Like, how thick of a material? Or
it's going to be based off of which laser that you purchase from JTech. JTech has a 2.8, a 4.2, and a 7-watt laser that is available, and all 3 of those are compatible with this machine because they're all just a different laser head in the JTech control board.
Okay.
Also, from a safety perspective, we have transitioned to Gerbil 1.1 G, which has laser mode. So in Makerverse, there's going to be an update to Makerverse rolling out. Hopefully, we're planning on it coming next week. So if you have auto update turned on, it'll automatically hit you. And then in the laser widget, there will be an on-off switch, and then that will be what initiates that, $32 equals 1 to enable laser mode with the Gerber setting. And then on your control board, it's just a very easy connection on the turn block here on the end. It's just 2 wires. So it uses a PWM input from the turn block output, and then a ground. And then it goes into the JTEC control board. And that is what interprets all of those PWM inputs and controls the laser. And then the laser has a cooling fan built into it. That's all directly from JTEC. The only custom thing that Joel has done is he's mounted a 12 watt, like a case fan almost. And then he's running that directly off of the 12 volt out on the control board, similar to Casey's light kits.
So that's your air assist?
No, so this is not air assist. This is really just for fume extraction. If you wanted to do air assist really comes into play when you're wanting to do cuts, because having focused air on the point that the laser is touching does kind of amplify the cutting power. We're working on a couple air assist options, but those will be kind of user manufactured, just because the current JTEC laser kits don't have an air assist built into them. And we currently don't have like a software trigger or anything to activate it, but we have seen that, there's a lot of people with CO2 lasers. They use just like an aquarium pump with a hose. So that could be something that could be added, but currently our main focus is just getting the laser on there and functioning within the software, and then looking for, what those future innovation options would be going forward.
Okay. And I seen the thing on there from Patrick yesterday.
Yes.
People were asking about the price of it, and he specifically said the board was $199, and then he stated the price of, I think it was the 2 or 2.8 watt. Correct.
So the board is any existing M2 owner does not need to purchase the $200 board. Okay. The $200 board is if someone has a classic Maslow or a Maker-Made Jumpstart kit and they're wanting to add laser capability, they will need to upgrade to the DO-based control board that the M2 uses before they can introduce a JTEC laser kit to their machine. But anyone that already has a M2 of any variant or has already purchased the DO Shield or the DO upgrade for a Jumpstart, you have what you need. The biggest way to tell is if you look at your control board and you have this green turn block right there, you have the controller that you need. If you don't have that turn block on the end of your shield, like if you have, like a 1.2 or a 2.0 Arduino Mega based board, you will need to upgrade to a DO based controller to implement the laser, because the DO has the additional PWM capabilities that are not currently on the Mega.
Okay, you guys may want to clarify that in the Facebook page. I had a few people pinging back going, great, now if we want the laser, we got to buy a new board. And I was
right. Yeah.
And I said, I don't think so, because mine says laser on it, right?
Yep.
So
as long as you have an
clarify that.
100%. And I appreciate you calling that out. We'll definitely make sure that all future releases, are very emphatic in saying that if you have an M2, you do not need to purchase an additional board. And this board here comes with the JTEC laser kit. Now, I know I saw in one of the posts that somebody said $700.
That's if you go with the full 7 watt. They're 2.8. I want to say the price range on their website is like 328 to 700, depending on what variant that you get. And then we're going to go in and define like the options that you need to use. Like they have, oh, do you want a magnetic mount? Obviously you don't need a magnetic mount because of the mount style that we have. So there are a couple options within the JTech checkout process that you do not need to purchase. And then there's a couple settings that you do need to ensure that you do properly. The biggest being the cable length. So in the JTech checkout process, they ask what length of cable that you need. They are directly referencing this cable that goes to the laser itself. And then obviously, just given the M2 and the Maslow layout, you want to select the longest cord available. And the reason why is they do have like these JST connectors on the ends, so that it makes it a lot easier to connect. And you just want to make sure that you select the right cable so you don't end up, taking on a splicing job unexpectedly.
Yep. I agree. That's good. That's good. A few people got to see the sneak peek at it.
That's nice. And Joel, what'd you say this was like an hour and 20 minutes? Yeah. So this whole thing took an hour and 20 minutes to run. And you can look at, it's, the detail on it is definitely unachievable by any V-bit I've seen.
Is that how thick is that material and how deep does it go? I stepped away and I didn't hear any of that.
So the depth I would say is probably like maybe a 16th at most, maybe a 32nd. It's definitely an engraving pass, not a cut or what you would call a scan line in laser. The material is a 3/4 inch MDF. Okay. And the laser in use is the 2.8, right? No, 7. This is the 7 watt. Now, it is worth noting, though, an engraving pass like this is going to be achievable by the 2.8. The biggest thing that you're going to get, the power of the laser does not increase the speed of the cut or anything. All of those are going to be static to the motion controls of the machine itself. The power of your laser is just going, it's equivalent to depth of bit. It's going to determine how deep you can go into what materials and which materials you are capable of cutting. And then we're sourcing all that information from JTech, so that all of our information is consistent with the laser kits that we're directing everyone to purchase for this upgrade.
Yep.
Okay, so that information is forthcoming. You kind of broke up.
Correct. Yes, that information is on the way. That will be in the 15th release, right? Yep. That all of that will be coming out the 15th. That's where you'll see all of the instruction guide on how to connect it to your machine, how to mount the laser, how to set up Lightburn. So Lightburn currently is the software that we are recommending for users to create the CNC, the G-code files that are required to run a laser cut. Easel currently doesn't do it. There's some other freeware applications, but Lightburn is by far the easiest, and a license for that is a one-time payment of $40. So that's just kind of the general outline of all the things that are going to need to be purchased. Obviously, if you have some CAM software already that supports laser, then you'll be able to utilize that as well. But anything that creates a G-code file that has laser power settings in it. Also worth noting, the JTech lasers do have direct support for an e-stop button. They don't come with the kits, but you can add them to the JTech kits. They just have a connector directly on their board, and that will kill the laser in motion or at rest. Obviously, the sled itself will continue to move, but the laser will not fire. And in the G code, in the new global config that we are using, the laser will not fire under any G0 motion control. All of your G code that tells it to perform an engraving will use a G1. And so if the sled is not in motion, the laser will not fire. Now that is during G code control. The laser widget itself that has like the pulse options, those are purposefully meant to override that setting so that you can confirm functionality of your laser by setting, time-based pulses with the laser itself. But as far as running a project, the laser does not fire unless the sled is in motion. And that is why when you look around the perimeter and all of these are very uniform engraving passes, and you don't see any resting burn marks on the material itself.
Yeah. All right. Well, folks,
good, Chris.
I got another meeting. So thanks a lot, Chris, for the update there. I appreciate
Perfect.
it.
Any other laser questions? We want to make sure that all the content is what it needs to be.
I kind of had a question. I mean, I've actually, as a person who's never used, I'm still setting this up. If you have a laser, and you have the router. I mean, do they both do essentially the same thing? Or is there an overlap? I mean, you do certain.
There is an overlap. So a laser has cut capability, but its primary use case is in an engraving setting, whereas a router is a subtractive method. You're always going to be removing material when using the router, whereas the laser, you can add an engraving. So if Joel wanted to, he could take the laser out of the sled, put his router back in, and then come over here to this engraved project, and then he could cut a profile around this all the way through the material, and then have both a cut project that was cut out of the MDF as well as something that was engraved. And then you can also do it in the other direction as well. You could, there's a lot of people that are doing signs where they cut out, like a 15-inch circle, and they'll put words and everything on it. You could cut a bunch of those circles out and then mount those circles back to your waste surface, swap out the laser, and then come and then engrave designs on those pieces that were previously cut by the router. So they're extremely complementary to each other, but the laser is not meant to fully replace the router, as the router is not meant to be used instead of the laser. They're very specific tools for specific instances.
It sounds like the laser can do some of the stuff that people are using the router to do now.
Correct. There are certain that there's some, say I'm going to do a name in a V-bit, but I'm never planning on doing like a color fill or painting the name. I'm just using the V-bit so that I can get a lot of that detail. The laser could very perfectly do extremely fine lettering with sharp edges and detailed corners. If you look at that edge right there. I mean, the V-bit required to make designs like that is a very expensive bit, and it's a very time-consuming process with the router. The laser is able to hit that one pass engraving and go. So there are definitely certain things that users are using, like a V-bit or a drag bit, where a laser could take place and perform those actions in a single pass versus doing.
But is it possible if the material's thin enough that the laser could, cut through it? And then
yes,
I mean, okay,
100%. So on the JTech site, they on their 7-watt kit, they say that it has the ability to cut 1/8-inch material. And then, but when it's coming to ply, it's very dependent on what the filler is. If you get some of the cheaper plywood that has like the junk filler, it's not actual solid wood on the inside, you could struggle to cut that. And there's a lot of information about cut capabilities on the JTech site, and we'll be referencing all of those features and capabilities in our release on the 15th.
And the name of the company was J.
It's JTech Photonics.
Okay.
And when is this to be a viable addition to the Mazda? I mean the M2.
So on the 15th is when we are going to be releasing all of the instructions, as well as like the downloadable STL file, and then, but the laser purchases themselves will be made on the JTech site, because they have all the full kits. They come with a set of safety glasses and all that stuff. In our desire to get this information out as quickly as possible, it's faster to have you be able to purchase one from them than wait for us to do a bulk order and have them in stock relatively to the same price as them.
Great, thank you.
Chris, a couple days ago, I had a question on Facebook I put out there about my specific issue with I installed Makersverse, but then I had a problem because I didn't bring in the Arduino firmware, and I posted it out there. Something, and I don't know if you saw that, but Casey suggested I talked to you about that. I don't know if you have time to take me through it right now, but or maybe I can just send something to you directly. I'm kind of like working it out, but if there's some way you can kind of explain it in a nutshell.
So were you just wanting it to download the firmware so that you could use the Arduino application to upload it?
Essentially, what I did was I went ahead and I bought a little Mac Air, from this refurbished shop, and it's a beautiful little Mac. I mean, it's like perfectly new. And I thought, okay, I'll use it just for this. So I downloaded I tried it to Makers University. It came like a little package, and it gave me trouble. It didn't want to let me bring it in because it just said something about potential virus. So I found a way to unzip it with another file. I brought that in. Then when I tried to set it up, it gave me asked me to select the type of machine, and then how many the shields, the size of the sled. Yep. And then when I get down there, it just says something like, you need to go to Maslow Dual and upload the firmware, which I figured out how to do that in Arduino just recently. So I went in there and I updated it, and then it gave me the option for the Arduino Dual and the little proportional, whatever it's called, proportion. Anyway, I'm there, but I went ahead and I deleted the Makersverse, the whole thing. I went ahead and uninstalled it because it's seen somewhere where someone said you have to do the Arduino thing, the update first, and then bring in the Makersverse.
Yes. So you'll need to update the firmware first. You don't have to uninstall Makerverse, but you need to make sure that you don't have Makerverse running while doing the Arduino, because both Makerverse and Arduino are going to try to automatically connect to that control board whenever you connect it to your computer. But then once you have that firmware, you'll go to create a new workspace, select the M2, the 18-inch sled, and then it'll give you like a port selection drop down. You'll find your control board, and then hit connect, and then it'll go through and it'll build out the workspace for you, and then you'll be ready to progress forward with calibration.
So at some point, I want to turn off Arduino, like close it, and then bring Makersverse back into the situation.
100%. So after you get the upload complete message in the Arduino application, go ahead and close the Arduino application. Another thing is if you're on a Mac, make sure that you go up to the top toolbar, click where it says Arduino and say quit Arduino, or do like the command Q to quit, because if you hit the red dot to close that window, the Arduino application is still running in the background. You just closed like the UI, and that's just a weird that's just a Mac nuance. So make sure that you have fully quit the application before transitioning.
I totally appreciate that, because I haven't owned a Mac in a long time, and there's a lot of stuff I don't. That's a big deal, actually. Otherwise,
absolutely. I've fallen victim to that a few times with, stuff like you think you close the Chrome browser, but it's still hogging a bunch of resources on your machine.
That's good to know. That's good to know. The little red dot that doesn't actually close. You may have to go up to the bar and actually, I don't know if it's called force quit or just quit the actual application.
Yep.
At the
And you'll
bottom,
just quit it, and then that will fully close out the Arduino application.
Well, the other thing too that's kind of weird is, like I said, I downloaded it yesterday from in the house. Came in. I wasn't in front of the. I haven't gone back out there and hooked up to the actual little controller or whatever, the box. So I'm sort of like haven't quite finished it. But the other issue I'm having too is with Makersverse. I brought in I call it the zip file, the package PKG file, but my computer gives me like it says no, you can't open this, and that's it. And then for some reason I figured out a way to do it, but then when I uninstalled it, I tried to bring it in again, and I don't know how I did it to where I got it to open and basically unzip.
Download in a zip, not a PKG. So if you go to the link for the firmware, there's a green button in the upper right-hand corner. When you click on that, it'll pop up a little drop down, and then download zip will be an option in that menu. And then it'll just download a zip file with the contents of the firmware. And then you'll extract the contents of the firmware, and you'll look for a file inside that folder that ends in .ino. It'll have like it'll have like the little green Arduino icon beside it. You just double click that and it'll open it.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I had that part right. But where I think I confused it was where I said the Makersverse, that particular software or thing I tried to bring in.
Oh, no, there's an installer. So if you go to makerverse.com, there is under the download section, there is just a Windows installer. I think it's executable. I don't think it's an MSI, but then you can just download that and run. Now, for Mac, you're looking for the .dmg file. You'll download that. That's a Mac installer. The package is more meant for like Linux distributions, people that are using like a deb package manager.
Okay.
But for Mac, you want to download the .dmg, and that's the installation of executable for Apple.
So once I do that, then I can go ahead and then I can bring in the Makersverse.
Correct. You download that. You'll double click it. It'll go through and it'll install Makerverse, and then you'll be ready to go.
Well, thank you. And like I said, it's been kind of like, because like I said, I haven't done any of this stuff in a long time, and I'm sort of like all over the board, you know.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. And then so that's been very helpful. Thank you again.
100%.
Yeah.
And for anybody that's still on, Joel he's went ahead and started an engraving run. You can see the laser. Now the JTech kits do have a UV filter on the front of them. That's what that orange piece that's illuminating. So you're not just staring with naked eyes into a blue diode space. And then you can see the lines that are coming out, and then obviously the speed. The diameter of the sled definitely makes it somewhat difficult to gauge how fast it's moving, because you have 9.5 inches to the left and to the right of the laser itself. But you'll see the designs emerging from underneath as it continues to move to the right.
Looks pretty good.
Really? And this is running at 350 inches per minute.
Wow. So does it run faster than like the a router set up the same way? I don't know.
This is 350 millimeters per minute.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The machine itself is capable of 1,000 millimeters per minute. So this is running at less than 50% of the speed. And then obviously you'll be able to try different speeds out and kind of fine tune. A lot of it is going to be based on the material itself, as well as mating the laser power. So when you get it to, anyone that's used a CO2 laser is aware of this. But as far as, think about it like with your bit, where you are trying to marry the RPMs of the router with the speed of the machine to get, proper material removal and no blowout. Marrying laser power with speed is how you're going to get these uniform cuts. So if you go slower with your machine speed, you can go on a lower laser power, because that pulse, that beam is focused for a longer period of time as it's traveling. But if you do a higher power, you can run a higher speed. But those are some things that will vary from material to material. Like chloroplast and less dense wood is going to have a faster burn rate than others. MDF you usually run pretty slow because it's just a bunch of glued together sawdust. So you want to make sure that you don't have any random inconsistencies from hitting a glue patch versus hitting some of that dust.
Coming out with laser.
And then there's the cut that Joel just finished. I mean, it took 4.5 minutes. And this is, a little over 12 inches tall, or right at.
Wow.
And that's it. That was one pass. There's no, there's no cleanup run. That was just a quick engraving.
Looks pretty cool. I mean, every time I go on Facebook or wherever, I see a lot of Glowforge. Glowforge is like 5 watts or something.
Glowforge is a 40-watt CO2, so it'll have a little bit more cutting power, but it is nowhere near the capabilities of the size. I want to say it's like maybe 12 inches wide by 10 inches or something. It's like a rectangular. I know you can put a MacBook inside it because I've seen that from some of their ads. But it is a fully enclosed system, so they don't have like a tiling option where you can feed it through. It's a good tool for what it is, and if you're going to make small things. But the Glowforge Pro is $5,000.
I know. Yeah, I saw. Yeah, I was just going to say. I noticed the price, and then also too, someone could like even engrave on stainless steel or something, and it wouldn't even make a mark on it.
Yep.
So. It's limited. I guess you have to get up into like higher, like maybe double in power to start getting really serious.
And a lot of it too is, so the laser has a frequency that it operates in also. So CO2 is a type of laser, diode is a type of laser, and then you have fiber laser, and then all of those operate at different like pulse frequencies, and that's what dictates what they can and can't cut, how they're focused and everything. So like diode is really good for engraving and cutting, smaller things, thinner materials, less dense items. When you get into items like engraving Yeti cups and all that stuff, that's when you're going to see people making the jump to CO2, or if you're doing faster cuts. A dedicated laser is always going to move faster because they're using like servo-based steppers, like a DeskJet printer, but obviously size is going to be much, much smaller. And then each of those progresses. So as far as a laser, a 4x8 laser, even if you were to buy, you're in it $1,000 on your M2, maybe another $700. I would put a strong challenge to find a 4x8, even diode laser for less than $2,000 on the marketplace right now. It's definitely something that is bringing very large scale projects to life for laser.
It also seems like if you're really going to use both of these, like the router, it might be at some point advantageous to have 2 of them, one dedicated for laser.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at this piece right here that Joel did, he could easily have multi-layer, multi-style lines that could come into it. So this engraving pass could have happened, still maintain machine 0, swap out to a V-bit, add some additional information, swap out to another bit, do a full cut. So this is definitely going to add an additional layer to the manufacturing capabilities of the machine. It's very much, you could almost take like a screen printing approach with laser, where you go and you cut out a lot of things that are going to receive engraving, and then swap out to a laser, and then go ahead and apply those designs to those shapes. The other thing is Lightburn is also SVG based. So any SVGs or files that you've already generated to create router cutting G code, you'll also be able to import those designs into light burn and then create engraving G code for that as well. So any design SVGs, I know some people like to purchase designs because sometimes the file's already out there and it's just $2 away.
Right.
So all of those design files in the SVG format are 100% reusable in Lightburn for use on the laser.
Okay, thank you. I look forward to learning more about it for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we've also had we've seen some use cases. We have a couple partners that have some lasers. One of the other cool things that we've seen implemented is they'll just go download like cut file, like plans for something that you have to cut out of plywood, and then they engrave the pattern on the piece of on the sheet, and then they just pop it out and then they cut it out with the jigsaw using the engraved lines as the cut marks for everything. So there's a lot of great use cases. We're definitely excited to see what the community does, because you guys always come up with stuff that is beyond our initial expectations.
Sure, that's what makes it kind of fun, is because everybody has a lot of people are very creative and very technical at the same time. For me, anyway, I'm watching a lot of people doing a lot of amazing things. So it's exciting for me to kind of watch and then kind of try to do my own thing. For sure. That's pretty cool.
Perfect. Well, if there's no other questions, I'll give everybody. I know we went 4 minutes over. I want to be cognizant of anyone that planned their life around this meeting, and look forward to a release from us on the 15th. And then we'll probably, in the coming days, have additional like photos and everything that get uploaded to the owners group.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time. And I really learned a lot more than I anticipated every time. So
awesome.
Thank you again.
The goal.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate it.
It really
everybody
does.
Have a great day.
You too. Take care. Thank you, guys.
Goodbye.